Normally, this is the part of the show where I give you a funny, quippy little intro before we actually get into the podcast. Instead, for this episode, I would like to leave a moment of silence in memory of my uncle who passed away this past weekend. And now, on with the next episode of the Dark Avenger podcast.
I got something to say, so listen good. Ain't nobody gonna jump on me, cause there's a price that we pay, and I think we should. Why can't people just let me be?
Alright, and here we are with episode 7 of the Dark Avenger podcast, YouTube files. That's the Dark Avenger podcast that you can only hear exclusively at this point in time on YouTube. For now, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, say no more. That really gets old after. Anyway, this episode was supposed to be talking all about Dark Avenger Reborn and the rebirth of this channel. And it was supposed to be a lot of fun, happy times. Unfortunately, the beginning of this show is anything but that. And it's actually one of the reasons why this show is basically almost an entire week late. Now, as you guys know, Dark Avenger Reborn, the final part went up last Friday, which was the last Friday of April. We're now in May. It's May 5th now. And this podcast was supposed to come out last Saturday. It was supposed to follow up directly after Dark Avenger Reborn. And it was supposed to talk about why and what's next. And I will be talking about that in this episode. However, on Saturday in the morning, we ended up getting a call from our aunt, and it turned out that our uncle, who was sick in the hospital just months before, and I had talked about it on episodes, the first couple of episodes, as a matter of fact, he ended up passing away in his sleep. He spent several months fighting, whatever strokes I believe he had, and he had gotten better to the point where they told him, he could go home. However, the doctors didn't give, the most positive of discharges with him either. But unfortunately, he did pass away on Saturday, and he had a wonderful burial yesterday, which was Thursday, May the 4th. He was in the Navy, so he got an honorable burial for having served his country. We got the American flag. They played taps for him before they buried him. It was a very deep service, but all throughout the week, things have been hectic, so unfortunately, I was unable to record. Saturday was when everything went down. Sunday was kind of like the aftershock, and then all week long was the wake and the funeral, and we had family popping by. Our aunt is staying with us again for a time, so it's just been a hectic week. So here we are. It's Friday. Last Friday, Dark Avenger Live didn't happen because we lost internet for a couple hours. This Friday, knock on wood, I don't want to knock too hard because the microphone's on the wood, but hopefully everything will stay perfect and we won't have to worry about any issues there. But I just wanted to take the time out before we got into any really joyous, wonderful news, and just take the time out and first of all, remember my uncle, which is why the intro was that, and then also just to talk about my uncle really quick, because my uncle actually, ironically, when I started collecting comics, as you guys know, I love Superman. Well, my uncle was born in 1926, so that was 12 years before 1938, and he was 12 years old when the very first issue of Superman, which was Action Comics issue 1, dropped, and he had in his hands Action Comics 21, and I remember the stories he tell. After I started collecting, when I found out my uncle was a huge fan of Superman, I used to show him all my books. I don't know if he cared or not, but because he was older at the time, he hadn't collected comics for years. This was mostly his childhood and maybe teenagehood, but then after he got out of the service and he got married and stuff, I don't think comic books were anywhere in his life. But I don't know, maybe he did enjoy seeing me, showing him all the new stuff that was going on with Superman. And he used to draw. He had old drawings of like the Golden Age Superman, the Golden Age Hawkman. I think he did the Turtles, like the first like 86 Turtles. Yeah, Batman. Like I'm talking about, these are like back when Bob Kane and you had the not Dan Jurgens. Oh my God, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster did their versions of Superman. And I don't know where those pictures are. Maybe one day I'll find them and I'll share them online, but my aunt has them somewhere. But he was definitely, it was a definite connection there, especially when I started collecting comics, and especially Superman. We had that little extra connection. He would share like his stories from the things he remembered and how he regretted having Action Comics #1. And, you know, at the time World War II happened, so they were like, donate your comics, you know, give away your comics. And you guys know the story if you know the history of like what happened with the older comics and why they're so expensive and so rare now. But, you know, there was that connection I had with my uncle for a very long time, and we shared that all the way until, you know, now. But yeah, my uncle definitely played a huge role in my sharing of comics, and this was before I got on YouTube also. It was like, he was like the only person I talked to about Superman or whatever, because he actually had an interest in Superman, and it was fun. And I don't know, it just played a lot on the first couple of years and setting the foundation to my collecting comics, because I had someone to talk to and somebody who liked the character I was collecting. So it definitely, I just wanted to take the time out in the beginning to just, you know, remember my uncle, and also, you know, this episode, you know, dedicate this episode to him. You know, it's kind of ironic, Dark Avengers, you know, being reborn, and at the same time there was a loss. And I don't know, I believe that there is something after life that we all go through, and I believe he's there now, and he's having, you know, the time of his life. There's afterlife, as they say. I'm very bad with this type of stuff, but I know that I believe that there is something after death. I don't know what, but I'm sure he's there now. And he's, you know, my uncle was very sick, like I said. You know, you guys know, because I've been talking about him being in the hospital for months. At least now, it's kind of ironic that I would talk about, you know, Cookie being very sick, because my uncle was very sick as well. And now it's like, you know, I'm very sad that he's gone, but at the same time, I know he's not sick anymore. You know, he's not going through all the pains and the problems that he was going through, especially the last couple of years of his life were very trying. So I take a little bit of solace knowing that he's okay now. You know, he's not suffering anymore. Not saying he was suffering, you know, big time, but he had a lot of things I'm sure he was going through at you know, especially towards the end, and with the hospitals and all the visits and stuff like that. But yeah, that I don't want to spend too much time on this, because I don't want to make you guys sad. I'm, you know, we're all in the mourning stages right now, and you know, I had Cookie and now my uncle, and it's just been a very surreal past couple of months for me, and things can only hopefully get better from here, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed to that. And I hate to make such an extreme transition from something very sad to something very happy. And I want you guys to know that, you know, I do this because I know this is what my uncle would want me to do, because he was happy. He was actually he was the only family member to actually join us in a Brooklyn Boy video. And he was very happy when I had mentioned, you know, first of all, that I was doing comic books in the media and stuff. And then when he heard I was doing my own comic book, he was even more overjoyed. So I know he'd want me even more so to push forward with what I'm doing on YouTube and what I'm doing as far as my writing. And that's exactly what I'm going to do, is I'm going to push forward. And like I said, this episode and the whole rebirth, I do have other people I'm dedicating the rebirth of DarkAvengerC86 to, but I definitely am dedicating where we go from here and this episode to my uncle, who actually did kind of encouraged me to, you know, keep going, and encouraged my book and encouraged my work with and in the comic realm as far as media. Okay, so moving on now to what this episode was going to be about and where we're going from here. Dark Avenger Reborn. It was a series I had planned out for 2 months, 8 episodes. I believe we did 7 in the end. 1 episode never made it out, but I did do a teaser to kind of make up for that. And I'm known for doing announcements, and one thing I didn't want to do in this case was, you know, I announced when I was going to be doing like this big push on my channel. I announced when I went to a vlogging channel, and I announced other things I was doing, and Frontline, and it's like, you know, I even said I was getting tired of hearing myself make announcements, and half of the time I would make an announcement, and the big push was a perfect example of that. I'd make tons of announcements, and half of the things I couldn't do because I was overloading my plate. I was completely overfilling it, and I didn't even realize I was doing that. And then when I had all of this stuff to do, I was like, whoa. And half of that stuff never got done. So I decided I'm not going to make an announcement. I'm not going to say, oh, you know what, I'm going back to DarkAvengerC86, change the entire channel up, and then not know what I'm doing. So what I did was, this was at the exact same time where I stepped back a little bit. This was before I stepped back, as a matter of fact, where I decided, you know, the vlogging isn't working for me. And we're going to go through, we're going to pick myself, I'm going to pick my own channel and myself apart here. So as you guys know, I moved all of my comic stuff over to Frontline, and I made this a vlogging channel. That was where things were set as of the end of last year, going into the beginning of this year. And I don't know, but it didn't take long, but at the same time, it did take some time for me to realize that it just wasn't working out. Like, I had this feeling in the back of my mind, like things weren't working, but at the same time, I was so into doing all of my series on Frontline, and then, you know, trying to do something on my channel every now and again, that I really wasn't acknowledging it, but I knew it was there. It's kind of like that weird little itch you have, or this feeling that, you know, something is off, and that something has been off for a while, but now that something has changed so drastically, you're starting to see it. And it's kind of like one of those things where, you know, you don't notice it at first, but as time moves on, it gets bigger and bigger. I can't think of a good analogy, so I'm just going to say it. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and then you start to notice it. Well, it was happening, and I know that it's been happening for a very, very, very long time, for years on my channel. It went from avoiding it to trying to attack it and make it better, and thinking it's better, and then just giving up, and then trying something completely different. And that's where you start to get that feeling in the back of your head that, you know, something doesn't feel right, but you're so busy doing a ton of other things that it just doesn't hit you. But you still have that gnawing feeling in the back of your mind that there's something wrong. Well, for me, it came to light not too long ago. A few months ago, I was watching one of my good friend Larry Higgens, aka Rebel Komix, talking about, now it's called Niobe Files, by the way, but he had a live show that was going on at night, and he had a bunch of people on, and I had been frequenting his comments, and Great Legend came on, and he started talking about old times. He saw me in the comments, and he said something that made me that kind of made me step back for a moment. He said, oh, that's DA Dark Avenger, but he doesn't go by Dark Avenger anymore. Now he's Chris Ventura. And I'm like, but wait, I'm still Dark Avenger. And then I actually stopped myself and said, no, but you're not anymore. And we had such a wonderful conversation. What happened was I ended up on the show. Long story short, we ended up talking about way back when the comic community first started, and Gen 1, and it just got me thinking so deep. I mean, first the statement with the name, and then just the talking about how things were when I started, and how things, and then in my mind, it's just like how things have changed. So if anything, I gotta give Rob the Great Legend the hugest props right now, and I gotta say, it's because of him that itch that was in the back of my head finally got my attention. And then I was like, you know what, I went to Brant, and I was kind of worried because Brant was getting great ideas because of what I was doing on my channel, and Brant's doing an awesome job. You should go check out his YouTube channel, Brant Fowler. But anyway, I wanted to go back, and I had approached Brant about it, and he's like, well, what about, you know, Chris Ventura, what about this? And I was like, you know, as much as I loved all the work that you know was done with the channel, and Brant really helped me out a lot, but I told him, you know, I gotta be honest with you, man, and I just don't feel, it just doesn't feel like me. I really think I want to go back to Dark Avenger. And he supported it. He said, dude, you know what you like, you know what you can and can't do. And this was before I took that step back to really figure out what I really wanted to do. So I said, yeah. And then I started thinking, you know what? I'm not going to do an announcement. I'm going to do this the right way. I'm going to actually do a little minor event of my own. If Marvel could do one every single month of the year, I could do one. So I decided I was going to get a bunch of clips, and I was going to lead it into the rebirth of DarkAvengerC86. So I did a bunch. I had 7 episodes outlined out. And Brant was helping me with he helped me a lot with the first episode. He actually did a lot of he did all the editing in episode 1. He's helped me out with the pictures and images, all that stuff. And even the redesign of the banner and the remake of the logo, which I love. The black and white logo. I don't know why, but it fits Rebirth. But anyway, he helped me throughout. And what I decided to do was a retrospect of the channel. I decided to go from the very beginning, where everything started, go through to Dark Avenger Inc., go through to Comic Frontline, then go through the big push I made on this channel, and then go into when I went into the vlogging channel and how that was wrong. And I got to tell you guys something. It was not. I believe everything's for a reason, and I believe God made me do this series on purpose to see all the things that I had promised, all the things that I have done on the channel since day one, and how insane I have been. And I'll tell you, as I was going through the videos and as I was doing it, the more I was like, wow, what was I thinking on certain things? And you could see exactly the moment where it happened. It happened the moment right before Dark Avenger Inc. came into creation. And it wasn't Dark Avenger Inc.'s fault. It wasn't. And I'm not blaming the group. My vision and what I had always dreamed of was to have a panel to talk about comics with. And Comic Frontline did that. Did that in more ways than one. And then expanded on it to something amazing. And I loved it. And I still love it. And Comic Frontline is literally, I never in a million years would have thought that I would have been there to create something so amazing. And I never thought I'd be a person that was a co-founder of a website that millions of people check, well, not millions, but thousands of people check out. And it feels, and it was amazing, and it still is amazing, and I love still doing that. But going back to on a personal level, because even Mike Spiderslayer started doing his own videos on his channel again. Like I said, Brant's doing a great job doing Monday Musing and all this other, and he started reviewing comics on his channel, and it's awesome. And it's like, you know, I see Brant doing it, I see Mike doing it, and Kat has her channel that she's been doing since day one, which is where all of her reviews go. And then Jay was talking about wanting to work on his channel again a bit, and I'm sitting there and I'm going, but I made my channel a vlogging channel, and well, I'm going way, way too far out. But I was doing this series. Let me back up a minute and then we'll go forward. So I was doing this series and I was watching. The first episode was wonderful because it was like taking a walk down memory lane. The first video, the 100th, then 200, 300. It was wonderful. And then Dark Avenger Inc. and Comic Frontline, those were two other wonderful walks down memory lane because I loved reliving the beginning of Dark Avenger Inc. and seeing exactly where we've come from there. Yes, it took 2 weeks to do it because 1 week was Inc. and 1 week was Frontline, but man, to see how far we have come, it was amazing. And then I went back to focusing on my channel, which was, you know, I did the firsts, I did the milestones, then I did the group channels, and that's where I started seeing things change and things not feeling like, you know, you have a vibe. Everybody has a vibe, and you have to stick with that vibe, because if you try to change it, people know that the vibe is off and they don't dig it as much. I just felt like a hippie explaining that, but I'm going to keep going. So I noticed that I had changed the vibe of this channel starting when I did that push. When I started noticing that I was not paying this channel close enough attention, and I went back to try to really inject work into this channel, and it started there because it said I'm Chris Ventura and this is my Dark Avenger is my handle. No, Dark Avenger is not my handle. Dark Avenger is who I am. That is not a handle. That is not a brand. That is me, period. Yes, it's my brand. Yes, it is a handle, but it also is me. That's who I was, and I lost that. And it was before Inc. It was about a month or two before Inc. It was back when I had that breakup. When I broke up with my ex-girlfriend, a lot of stuff had gone on at that time, and you know, it was such a bad timing because I had the breakup, and then not even a month later, maybe even a month and a half later, there was this problem that happened. and it became like there was a lot of drama going on YouTube. So I had drama at home because I was very upset. I had broken up with my girlfriend 2 years. We were really, really serious, and I was down about that. And then there was the drama. My one escape was YouTube, and there was the drama there, so I couldn't deal with that. So that's, ow, I hit my finger. And that's when Dark Avenger Inc. happened, and the drama disappeared from YouTube. Because then all my focus went into doing Dark Avenger Inc. All of my energy went into that. My energy didn't care about drama anymore, or I don't know where my head was at that time, but I thought that a lot of people were angry at me because of the CCC C channel, the Triple C channel, and how it didn't work out, and that I kind of abandoned that to go to Inc. But I really didn't abandon it. I was still working on it. It's just everybody else kind of slowly stopped doing it, and so did we. But anyway, I'm not talking about Triple C anymore. That channel has been gone for a very long time. But it was like, I had this wrongful feeling of blame, and I thought a lot of people were mad at me when they really weren't. And like I said, I had poured all my energy into Dark Avenger Inc. And, it was a very low point in my life as far as, anything was concerned. So when I came back to the channel and I was like, oh man, I'm not really, I'm in a rut. I'm doing 3 videos only. It's a haul, it's a review, it's an indie review, and then, well, not in that order, but rinse and repeat. 3 videos a week, and that's it. And I noticed that the views, as the rut continued, because I had other things mixed in. As that rut continued, though, it declined. And it wasn't, I was thinking it's because of the rut. But the truth of the matter was I moved to Frontline. I moved to Inc. at the time. And that's where I put a lot of my energy. That's where I put a lot of stuff. And, that's the one downside of working on multiple channels. And why I tell people you really don't have to have more than 2 channels to yourself. One for yourself and one for your group. And then from there, it's all about time management. Just figuring out what you want to do on your personal channel, and then figuring out what you want to do on your group channel. And I think I had a bit of a problem with that. And then I also piled more stuff on top of myself. And that kind of led to me doing just too much. I had too much that I was doing, and that's why it got very overwhelming. But that's just me personally. Going back to Dark Avenger, though, I focused so much on the group that when I came back to my channel, I expected the same type of reception that I got way back when I left the channel. And what I didn't realize, and I realize now, is when I left or stopped doing a lot on my personal channel to work on Dark Avenger Inc., the group channel, the comic community was a very different place. This was back when it was as people call it, Gen 1, where the community was a lot smaller. There weren't so many different communities either. There was just one, and we were all friends with each other, and things had changed. And not saying I was ignorant to the change, but at the same time, I didn't take it all in. I didn't realize how fundamentally different the YouTube comic community was. And when things weren't going the way I wanted them to with this push, I was like, okay, then maybe the channel is dead. And you know what? Looking back, see, this is why I loved this series and why I say God made me do this series, because he made me realize how crazy I had gotten. I was literally treating my channel like it was a group channel where I could do a million different things at once and contain it within my channel and then still work on Frontline. And the problem was, in doing this push, it took my attention away from Frontline and my work away from Frontline, because I was so focused on doing the work on my channel. And honestly, a lot of the stuff that I wanted on my channel just didn't fit for a solo channel. It worked best for if it was a group channel. And that's why a lot of the ideas that I had that made it over to Comic Frontline are doing amazing now, because they were always meant for more than just a one-person. It was more than a one-person job, the idea that I had. And yes, I did have Brant working with me on a few things, but me and Brant work on Frontline. So that's why our ideas like the Chris and Brant Show and 123 Podcast worked best on the group channel. The problem was I was straying too far away from my real identity, and I was already forgetting what I had already set, the groundwork I had already set for DarkAvengerC86 years ago. And I know I mentioned during the time of this craziness that I had gone back and watched the first video, and I had mentioned on that first video that this was going to be an everything channel, and that's true. And that's what I was trying to really I guess, shine a light on in the push was that I mentioned this was an everything channel, and that was what it originally was meant for. It was meant for me to talk about comics, but it was going to be very Brooklyn Boys-esque, except just me. That was the plan, that was the goal I had when I opened this channel. That is very true. However, what I failed to realize even is, yes, it started off that way. Yes, I did Ghostbusters. I did like one funny skit. I did a couple little extras here and there, but what this channel quickly became was what it was before I decided to make any changes, and that was comic books. When I started, I actually started with a video game collector's edition review, or an unboxing / review. I went into DVDs, I reviewed the animated movies, and then I went into the comic books. And that right there was when this channel officially got its personality, it got its feel, it got what it was meant for. Comic books and reviews and other things. This channel officially became what it was meant for, whether it was day 1 or day 30 or 6 months later or a year later, which is, I believe, when I actually did start the comic reviews. It was about a year later, if not at least 6 to 7 months. But that's when this channel got its feel, got what it was meant for, and basically that was where the groundwork, basically we took all of the, this is how this channel started, put it to the side, and said, okay, that's how it started, but this is where we're going. And the thing was, I never messed with it. I let it keep going. When it was the comic reviews, I had continued doing other videos like Comic Book Corner, DVD reviews. I started a podcast for a time, which went on, then went off. We did the live show, which then, of course, moved over to Dark Avenger Inc. But there were a lot of different things I did on this channel, but the one thing I never did a drastic change like that, and that's where things went severely wrong. First of all, saying that I didn't pay enough attention to this channel or I ignored this channel for so many years is not an excuse. We all have our own individual channels. Everybody on Frontline did. It was at the time there was a lot of stuff going on, and I literally wanted to put my focus on one place, and that one place at the time was Dark Avenger Inc., which became Comic Frontline. And it was honestly because I really wanted the group channel to build. I knew there was a lot of something there, and I knew that it needed a lot of nurturing, a lot of building, and that's what we did. But then what happened was I came back, I felt like I was in a rut. I was only doing the haul video, then the indie review, and then comic review, and then rinse and repeat. And I was like, ugh, I'm doing the same thing on this channel each and every week, and that's why things just kind of went downhill for my channel, and that wasn't the case at all. And then I decided to make that drastic change where I'd add even more videos, tons of new ideas, tons of new things, change up the channel basically. And for all those people that were subscribed for those 3 standard videos each and every week, some people, I'm positive, didn't like hearing all that. It's like, wait, I'm only here for these 3 videos. Why are you now adding like a million things at once, by the way, not even over time, at once. And that was another mistake I made. And then later on when that didn't work, like I said, I moved everything over to Frontline where everything that fit stayed, where everything that didn't fit, well, it was gone and fell into obscurity. And then there were some ideas that just never even made the light of day. It's all part of that announcement video. You can go watch it. But anyway, but then I come back. And this is the kicker. This is where I actually sat there and watching this video series myself, being the person that did this over again. I watched the new push where I was talking about how this channel was going to evolve into me, how it was going to become Chris Ventura, my pen name Ventura, by the way. What happened was I was listening to myself and say, you know, all the comic stuff is over on Comic Frontline. And you know, that is true. And I understand where my mindset was at that time. Mike Spider-Slayer had moved all of his stuff over to Comic Frontline. So I was like, that's actually a very good idea because I'm not liking where my channel's going. Mike had a great idea. Let's do that. Let me take all the stuff that I do here and bring it to a site where there are people, more people there that are there for the comic book stuff that will, you know, it'll give my videos that extra exposure they weren't getting on my channel. And I understand where my mind was at that time, listening to how I was going to change up my channel. I was going to change it into a vlogging channel, and it was going to be basically focused on me and my life and what's going on. And then I made the statement, there are not going to be any comics on this channel anymore. And I understand I said it was going to be on Frontline, but I'm sitting there thinking now, and like, no comics. This channel, even when it was at its randomest moment, had comic books mentioned in it. So you are taking First of all, the name changed from DarkAvengerC86 when Google Plus took over YouTube to Chris Ventura. So already the name on the channel, somewhere in this big mess of things that was going on, changed to Chris Ventura, but the URL still said DarkAvengerC86, so I left it alone. Whatever. It happens. It happened. I could have changed it. I didn't do it. But then I actually make the statement on that first vlog video, there are no comics on this channel anymore. And I sat there and looked at myself and said, no comics. Are you bloody insane? That is what this channel was based on. That was the foundation of this channel. That is who you are. That is DarkAvengerC86. If anything, that video solidified at that moment in time that this channel was no longer the channel it was when I opened it, and it sucked for me, in my eyes, because I just literally took everything this channel was, everything this channel stood for, all those years, all that work I did, and I basically said, that's done. That's over with. And I even mentioned that that's the archive, and that whole video was to explain the whole channel the way it was. The way it was. Sitting here watching that series over, watching the evolution of this channel, I sat there and went, I don't know what was going through my mind, but if anything, the one thing that should have happened with this channel long ago, long ago, was it should have gone back to its roots, where it started, and not where it very first started, where I very first mentioned random stuff. It should have gone back to where it was when it started picking up steam, where it started getting its personality and moving forward into where it was going to be. And that was my mistake. And like I said, I think at first I was going to make an announcement video saying, oh, we're back to DarkAvengerC86, this is the way it is, and here's what we're going to be doing. But then I said, wait a minute. And I was talking to Brant about it too, because when I had this whole idea of going back to DarkAvengerC86, I went to Brant and we talked about it. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to make an announcement video. I'm done doing announcement videos. I'm done with it. Unless it's absolutely necessary or something I want to talk about, then I'll make an announcement. But this, I feel like I had done too many, and it's true. I went from what the norm was, then I announced the Dark Avenger Inc., you know, the whole group channel, then I announced the big push, then I announced Chris Ventura. Enough with the announcements and the changes. Now it's all about action and where this channel is going to go and what I'm going to do with it, and we will get into that. But that's the point, was action, doing instead of mentioning or announcing. And that's what I did. I did a 7-part series where I literally went from the very beginning of this channel all the way through to now. And I gotta tell you guys the truth, this has been a journey for me as much as it's been a journey for you guys, watching how this channel has changed and how many mistakes I've made. And honestly, like I said, I poked fun at myself. But this series also showed me where this channel needs to be. And not comic books is not it. This channel needs to be comic books. This channel was comic books, should always be about comic books. Putting little extras in here or there, that was around since the very beginning. That's something that definitely will always be a part of this channel as well. Not doing series. While I still agree with that statement, you know, because of the dedication, the time, and, you know, making titles for things, I agree with all of what I said about that, you know, that it shouldn't have to have a title. At the same time, it's gonna happen. There are going to be certain things that end up in a series or a playlist, and a playlist can be considered a series because they're all part of the same playlist, which is the same series. So, yes and no. I agree and disagree with that statement, and that's not 100%. We all know that that's probably not going to happen when it comes to this channel. That there will probably be series here or there. Hell, this podcast right here is considered a series, even though I kind of think I put this out there as this is like going to be a series, even though it's not a series, even though no more. That whole statement I made kind of confused me. But vlogging, I very quickly realized, and this is why the vlogging thing just doesn't work for me. I very quickly realized that I don't have enough going on in my life that I can do a daily or even sometimes weekly vlog, because there's not enough that truly happens in my life where I feel like it's vlog worthy, honestly. And maybe to some people it is. I'm sure that there are things that I do in my everyday life that people will be like, well, that's a great vlog idea, or that's something great to put on a vlog. And I kind of tried that a little bit, and for me though, it just doesn't fit me. However, Brant is doing an amazing job doing vlogs and doing stuff on his channel. His Monday musings are things I look forward to every single Monday. And that's just an example. He has many other things that he does on his channel now that he got the idea from my vlogs. And you know what? He's doing excellent with it. That's his thing, and that's great for him. And it makes me, you know, enjoy watching the stuff, the new stuff he's putting on his channel. Because he did for a while, you know, Brant wasn't putting anything on his channel, and now he has ideas, and now people are watching and having a great time, and that's the huge plus to what Brant is doing. And that's what I made the mistake, is I started doing things that weren't enjoyable. It more felt like work. Brant found where he belonged, and that's what he's doing for his channel now. So now I've got to find where I belong, and I did find it. And it was going back to the roots, going back to where this channel really belongs, where this channel got its feel from, where it is, and that is DarkAvengerC86 is the feel. DarkAvengerC86 is the personality for this channel, and that's where it should say. So to state no comics was wrong, no series was half wrong, vlogging just is not me. I don't have an active enough life where I can do vlogs all the time. Again, I mentioned outside the pages, I would love to do it for my work with 529 Studios. And that's another thing. I work in comics now. No comics on my channel, and I'm a comic writer. Insanity. But anyway, I'm sure that I could work outside the pages, and if I have something I want to talk about when it comes to Celestial Falcon or any other books I'm working on in the future, I'm sure that I can fit a vlog or something in. If I have something super huge going on that I would like to record, sure, absolutely, that'll still go on. But that shouldn't be the main focus of this channel. And Chris Ventura does not exist anymore, and I explained that I think a little bit somewhere. I'll explain it right here again. The reason I'm letting my pen name die, because that's exactly what it is. If you look anywhere now, my name no longer says Chris Ventura anywhere, all the way down to my PlayStation 4 ID. Either I'm using my real last name, like on Facebook, and you will all see it on Celestial Falcon issue number 1, or it's Chris the Dark Avenger now. I don't use Ventura. I let Ventura die in this reality to give Chris Ventura life in the Celestial Falcon universe. That's where that's where Ventura originated from. When I was a kid, when I was in high school, originally, that was the name I gave to my character in the Celestial Falcon book, Chris Ventura. And then YouTube came around, and I was like, okay, I'm going to use that because, you know, we wanted to, you know, we didn't want to use our real last names at the beginning. It was a long story, but we ended up adapting Ventura as our pen name. That age is done now. I'm giving Ventura over to the character, to the person who had it first, and I'm letting him take it and fly with it and go into infinity and beyond with it. When it comes to me, I'm DarkAvengerC86. It's like the Great Legend said, and again, I gotta thank the Great Legend because he's the one that really truly made me sit down that night and think, you know what? Something's up, and I need to sit down and think about it. And that's when the series came, where I took this journey with you guys, and I said, you know what? Going back to the way things were, to the way things started, is exactly what this channel needs. This channel needs to be the way this channel was. This channel needs to be DarkAvengerC86, and that's what it is. So thank you, Rob, Great Legend, for bringing me back to my origin, bringing back DarkAvengerC86, and making me wake up and smell the coffee. And you know what? This is a very good time for all this to happen, because I'm noticing that Generation 1 community that we all had for a long time, and then things slowly started changing, is starting to come back. I'm starting to see Daken and Howlet make videos again. Great Legend is starting to make videos again. We had Ghostcritic, he's still making videos. Every now and again I get to see a Captain Stranglife video. But most importantly, and this is something I wanted to point out for weeks since I saw him say he was back on YouTube, Scott, Koestenbraumstar, is back. And I got to tell you guys something about Scott. If you're not subscribed to Scott, you will by the time I'm done with this. And I'm putting links to everything I'm talking about. Brant, Great Legend, and Scott's, Koestenbraumstar, Daken, Howlet down below. Anybody I'm talking about here, even Rebel Comics will be in the comments, because I talked about his channel and how it was his live show that actually sparked the conversation with me and Great Legend. But going back to Scott. Scott, I knew for a very long time when I first started on this channel. And I got to tell you guys a small story. Scott, towards the end of when he was during the Gen 1, when I was watching Scott, and he did it a little bit on Comic Community Central, before he took his long hiatus, because that's what we're going to call it now since he's back, right? He made some of the funniest videos, some of the randomest videos, and you guys know how I feel about random. And at the point where I kind of stepped back, when me and my girlfriend at the time broke up, I was in a very depressed state. I was very upset. You know, you get that way, especially when you're in a very tight, close relationship, and then it just ends. Not just, you know, ends over time, it ends suddenly in your mind. And his videos made me laugh and smile, and he really brightened up my day. And, you know, I know a lot of people came to me and said that about Brooklyn Boys, but Scott's random videos gave me, number one, he gave me something to look forward to, and he did the most craziest nutsoid things sometimes. And you know what? It made that point in my life right there. I needed something. And Scott, thank you. You did that and more. You gave me stuff to laugh at again, stuff to smile about again. And I never had the chance to tell him, and I don't even think he's going to be listening to this podcast, to be honest, but I never had the chance to tell him thank you, because he got me through the beginning of my breakup, because he gave me stuff to smile and laugh at again. And, you know, also, again, I had a podcast going on during my, as a matter of fact, I recorded a podcast the night that we had the breakup, and I know Daken Howlet was there. Oh my God, Cody was there. I forgot what he was going by at that time, but he changed his channel again. But anyway, and everybody, I had mentioned, you know, I was really down because of what happened, and everyone was there for me. And it was one of those moments where it's like, you know, like your cousin broke up with his girlfriend and you're there for them. It was that we had that tight of a relationship that they were there for me, and we didn't record for an extra half hour, 45 minutes. Because everybody was talking with me, trying to make me feel better. And that was, again, a moment that really meant something to me, because it was fresh. It literally just happened a couple of hours prior. And it just, right there, people are there, friends are there to make sure, hey, you know, it's going to be okay. And that meant a lot. So between what Scott did, what Daken Howlet did, what everybody did, you know, it meant something, and that's why I'm really happy that I'm seeing the community that I grew with coming back. And I'm really happy Scott's back, and I hope anyone who's new to the comic book realm, definitely go check out Scott's channel. Honestly, I think that a lot of what happened was, again, I went to Dark Avenger Inc., and that kind of took me away from everything else going on in the community. And a lot of people started getting tired, because it was around New 52 time where Dark Avenger Inc. came out, and a lot of people were very jilted in new comics, and a lot of people went back to the old comics and only wanted to talk about the old comics, only wanted to focus on stuff like that. And I wanted to stay with the new stuff, and I still stay with the new stuff to this day, because I believe, even, look, it doesn't matter what company. I read every single company. I can tell you guys I read at least one or more books from every single company out there that is known. And I even go into the unknown companies sometime and I read their books. But from the big two, let's not involve the indies right now. From the big two, I read more than one book from each of the big two companies. And I don't look at it as that's a Marvel book. Marvel is, you know, I rate books by what is done in the book. Yes, I know Marvel and DC are companies. They own the books. They own, you know, the events and stuff that's going on. Yes, it's true. And Marvel has done a lot to really push people away. And DC did the same thing with the New 52. And now they're trying to bring people back with Rebirth. Like Marvel is going to try to bring people back with Legacy. But you know what? I can't give up on either company. As much as I love to sit here sometimes and say, well, Marvel has just... And maybe one day when I get older, I will. Because I'll have enough. Right now, though, I don't feel that way. And I know there's a few people out there that's like, if it's Marvel, I ain't reading it. If it's DC, I'm not touching it anymore. Because this and this and this and this and there's a bunch of reasons. I can't do that yet. Number one, it'll never happen for DC because Superman for life. But even with Marvel, as much as I'll rag on Marvel, as much as I'll want Joe Quesada to please God one day step down because he's making a lot of bad choices, and I'd like a few other of the staff, the upper staff, to move out because they're making mistakes. DC, I could say the exact same thing. Dan Didio's wanted Nightwing dead for years. I think Dan Didio, but he doesn't have as much control as he did in the beginning. But again, I can't ever give up on the new stuff. I can't see myself doing that. Do I like old stuff too? Honestly, again, goes back to the Rebellious podcast. I'll point you over there. I did give up on the old stuff for a time, but that was me being rebellious. Now I'm reading a little bit of the old stuff again too. But for the most part, though, I am an old, I am a new, I am a everything. I don't like picking between old, new, or in between. I enjoy comic books in general, whether big two, independent, unknown, manga, whatever it is. I love it all. I've read it all, and I will continue to read it all because that's what I like. But going back to the community, I'm so glad because this happened at a time where it looks like the Generation 1 community is slowly coming back or slowly starting to make noise again, and I love it. I love that, and I hope that everyone continues to make noise. I'm glad Scott's making videos again. I hope he makes more. I really hope he stays. Also, I really enjoy watching his videos. I've watched every single one since he's been back without missing one. Daken, Howlet, Chris just had a beautiful baby, and he's back. He did a video. I hope he makes more because where Scott says he's giving YouTube another try and he's going to give it a go and he's going to keep going. Daken, Howlet, he makes videos every now and again, but then he disappears, and it's understandable. Life, 2 kids. I understand with 1 kid. And when we were doing that podcast, ironically, I had no kids, and he had 1. But at the same time, I really hope Daken comes back. Ghostcritic's been doing his stuff, man. He's been doing it every week. He's got his haul and he's got his reviews, and I've been watching, and now I'm getting verbal in his comments again. And you got, oh my god, Captain Stranglife has disappeared, but I hope he makes a video again soon. There's a lot of really great people that I've watched when I started, and I'm getting back into watching everybody and talking with everybody again, and it feels good again, having that first generation back again. And DarkAvengerC86's return couldn't have happened at a better time. It's now. Now when we got Scott back, when Daken Howlet's making videos, when we got a lot of the Gen 1 making noise again, DarkAvengerC86. I think, for me, I'm not saying for you guys out there, as much as I'm not saying you need DarkAvengerC86. I needed DarkAvengerC86 because that's who I am. I hope you guys enjoy DarkAvengerC86, and I want you guys to want DarkAvengerC86. Do you need it? No. Should you want it? I hope so, because that's what we're going to be giving you on this channel is DarkAvengerC86 24/7, baby. And I know a lot of people were happy when I brought DarkAvengerC86 back anyway. I think DarkAvengerC86 is needed for this channel, and that's what we're going to do. So what does it mean? Chris, what does DarkAvengerC86 mean for your channel now? What does that mean? What are you going to do going forward? You don't want to vlog. You said no comics, now you're saying comics, but you already moved everything that was on here over to Comic Frontline already. And yes, I did move everything over to Comic Frontline, and I'm not planning on playing hot potato back and forth with the series. And some of those series over there have loyal viewer bases, and I don't want to force anybody to come to this channel. I want them to want to come to this channel on their own. However, I do have an announcement for the 400th comic review. I'm not going to spoil that here, but there is an announcement for the comic review. But I'm not going to talk about moving anything anytime soon. But that doesn't mean we can't do comics on this channel. And believe me, there will be comics on this channel. Whether reviewed, discussed, talked about, what have you, comics are definitely the heart and soul of this channel, and this is where they will be also. Without taking away from Frontline, but adding to all the stuff that we do on Comic Frontline as well as on our individual channels. Will there be other things? Absolutely. I definitely could see a vlog popping up here, there, or everywhere. Will it be outside the pages though? No. It'll just be whatever the title says. Will there be outside the pages though? Whenever I have something I want to talk about, whether it be 529, Celestial Falcon, Last Ember Press, or any other book I'm working on, absolutely. When? I can't give you a date. This podcast, regardless whether it's a YouTube file or we go full-on regular podcast, yes, it will be on this channel. I am definitely working on a few ideas. Can I promise you guys like this time of the week, every week kind of deal? I would like to, and I'm working on an idea for at least one thing definitely a week as we speak. But for the most part, though, I don't like really promising schedules anymore because I've learned more times than not that saying I'm going to do something on this day at this time every week It works for a while, but then at some point something happens and it throws everything off. So it's better to leave you guys surprised. So if you are subscribed to this channel, there will be videos. They will be about comics. They might be a vlog. They might be an Outside the Pages. They might be this Dark Avenger podcast. They might be something else. But I can promise you guys that comics are back. They're here to stay. This is not Chris Ventura anymore. This is Dark Avenger C86. What it was, what it always should have been, and what it always will be. And that's what it is. You can expect a lot of things on this channel. Will there be a series or two? Possibly. There's always a possibility for a series or two. Even Mike Spiderslayer has returned to his channel to do a couple of things here, there, and everywhere, and that's exactly what I'm going to be doing here. But I'm not doing it as Chris Ventura. I'm doing it as Dark Avenger C86, damn it, and that's the way it always should have been. So yeah, I'm going to have a lot of stuff coming your guys' way. Can I say when? I have absolutely no clue, but I can definitely say keep an ear out during the 400th comic review. And as you guys can see already, I am posting Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The comic reviews that were up on Frontline are slowly moving over to this channel as well, because I want this channel to hit 400. What's announced after 400, we'll see from there. I want to kind of leave that as a surprise for now. But as always, guys, you know, I always recommend checking out Comic Frontline. That is where I am as well. I'm here on Dark Avenger C86, and I guest on a few other channels from time and time again. But I am happy with the decision I made this time. I hope you guys are as happy as I am, and hopefully over time, now that I see where I went wrong in the past and where I want to go in the future with this channel, I really hope that we can get together, myself as the maker of the videos and you guys as the viewers and commenters. I hope together we can definitely make this channel as enjoyable as it was before, and even beyond that. And that's my plan for Dark Avenger C86, and I hope you guys are as excited, I can talk, as I am, and I hope you guys are looking forward to it. And I will be talking about this on Dark Avenger Live. I know this is 2 weeks late, this podcast, so this Friday on Dark Avenger Live, I forget what episode we're up to now, but it is the first weekend. I want to make sure it's the first Friday of May, or if it's this, no, I'm sorry, it's the second Friday of May. It's the 12th of May. That's where I'll be talking to people and letting you guys know to come check this podcast out to see what I'm doing with this channel, and telling everybody on Frontline that left my channel to stay on Frontline that they might want to come back and check out Dark Avenger C86, because this channel is officially active again, and it is not a not comic book channel. It is a comic book channel forever and beyond. And Celestial Falcon, before I go, by the way, is now being sent to the printer. The first issue is completely done. It will be available to order as of May 29th, which is the last Monday of this month. I might actually be making an appearance at a convention. I don't want to make any promises yet. I've got to get full confirmation, but I just want to keep you guys aware. If you are in the New York area, there is a convention going on at the end of the month, and I might be making an appearance there. I will have Celestial Falcon issue #1 if you'd like a copy, and I will have a couple of other things if I go. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I will go, but I can't 100% promise you guys that yet. If I do go, there will be videos, and that will be a vlog right there, and that might actually also lead into an Outside the Pages. But until then, Celestial Falcon will be dropping May 29th. Books will start shipping. For those of you who pre-ordered a copy of Celestial Falcon, they will be shipping on June 1st. So look forward to that. I finally got to check out the entire book in its entirety, colored, lettered, everything. Oh my god. I really feel like I can talk about it now, and I actually will. I will have a video going up on Dark Avenger C86. It should be up tomorrow, which is Thursday, along with 2 reviews on Comic Frontline. But I will be doing a video talking about the preview pages, talking about the comics, so keep an eye out on this channel for that. And until next time, everybody, thank you all so much for being here with me. I don't want to push you guys too far. I don't want to go past the hour mark for this, because I want you guys to definitely check this out. And I'm already at 15 minutes, so technically it is almost an hour. But thank you guys so much for being here with me for this. There will be another episode of the Dark Avenger podcast hopefully soon. It's a Podcast is the next one, however, that I'm pushing out, because I did start recording that podcast as well. I want to finish it before more news drops, and I got to talk about more stuff and erase some older stuff to put the new stuff in and get episode 2 of It's a Podcast out. Till then, guys, again, this episode is dedicated to my uncle who passed away. Miss him. Definitely helped lay the groundwork for my love in comics and especially Superman. And DarkAvengerC86 is back. Thank you guys so much. Take care. And as I always say, keep reading, keep collecting. I'll see you guys soon in the next episode.